Coming now, come on. Time's up. Time's up.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you guys for joining us for another Planet Podcast. My name is Victor Verba, and I'm here with my good friend, Mr. Jeffrey Young. Jeff, welcome back from your glorious vacation. How's everything going today?
Doing good, man. Just getting back into the swing of things, digging out after being out of the office for about a week, but doing great, man. Happy to be back and ready to get rolling with some things.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about your vacation, man. Welcome. It was beautiful, sunny. I saw some pictures. Cancun, was it?
Yeah, Cancun. So first vacation in 3 years. Went to hit one of the all-inclusive places. So pretty much that consists of my wife and daughter and I sitting by the pool, consuming beverages and eating a ton of food. And I am happy to report that I did not get sunburned this time. Typically, I am extremely sunburnt by day 2 or 3. Not blistering, but uncomfortably sunburned. And somehow I avoided that this year. I'm not quite sure how that happened, but I did it.
How long do you usually,
Pretty proud
because
of
you've done these before, obviously pre-pandemic, I know we've talked about it. How long do you guys usually go for, the all-inclusive? Look, I know me, dude, I'm a booze hound. Like the first night, I'm like hungover for 2 days. So how long do you guys usually go?
You can't. So yeah, we're usually there for a week, and I've made that mistake before. My nieces went to have gone with us before, and the first time that they went, they're younger than I am, and I explained to them. I said, "Guys, look, this is a marathon and not a sprint with this all inclusive stuff. Okay, yes, you can have free booze at breakfast, but you don't need to consume all the booze that you want to consume in a day before noon, because yeah, man, again, I've done it, and it's like, wow,
Yep.
this vacation was expensive, and I laid in bed for one day of it because I just didn't feel that good. But it happens. It happens to all of us.
Yeah, the amazing thing about that, man, is like, I continue to do it. I still do it to this day. I'm like, oh, dude, I'm feeling so good right now, dude. I'm gonna feel great tomorrow, and tomorrow rolls around, and yeah.
Wow.
Well, yeah,
Yeah, no, it's look, I'm a beer guy. I'm not a mixed drink guy, and I can only do so much. Whatever they have at the resorts, Corona Light Draft or something like that, before I have to throw in the towel. It's enough of that.
That's a way to keep it safe.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Pace
Yep.
is not something I'm good at.
Yeah.
No, I struggle with that.
So
on our
while
work
you were
trips.
gone, dude.
So Vic,
Go ahead.
So Vic, we've got our good friend Derek joining us. Like to let him sit out there and kind of be uncomfortable for a few minutes while we
I
get
figured I'd try
While
to
we
get some
banter
work.
back and forth.
It's hard to get in between you
Yeah,
guys.
exactly. Yeah. So Derek is obviously works here with us at Verify. Derek, you want to kind of run through your role and kind of tell us what you do here at Verify?
Yeah, sure. So my official title is the Director of Product Development. So day to day, I'm working with the product team, all the developers, QA, product managers, just getting everyone on the same page about what we're doing and what's upcoming. Going through everything from R&D phase to development phase, release phase, all that sort of stuff. So my background is originally in software development. I was a developer for a few years before I started here at Verify, which was, oh man, that was like 8 years ago now almost. And when I started here, I was one of the only developers that we had. And, it kind of grew into this role naturally. The team started to scale up. We started to hire more developers, started building a QA team, design team, all that type of stuff. And we needed someone to kind of sit in the middle of all that and run as a head of product development. And so that's kind of where I've evolved into over the last, let's say, 18 months. So it's the product side of it is a little new to me, and not really to us as a company, but formalizing it a little bit has been new, which is great. And yeah, so that's kind of where I'm sitting now, is at this level where I'm just working through designs and getting things organized. Obviously working with Vic and all of our field engineers, our sales teams, just trying to understand what our customers are looking for us to build, what they're looking for us to add on to in terms of new development, in terms of improvement, and of course all the bug fixes and things like that that people want to see. So it's just my job to organize the release plans and make sure all the stakeholders are aware of the changes and things that we're going to be pushing through. So yeah, it's a little bit of, I know that's a long-winded way of kind of telling you what I do. It's a little bit all over the place. It's kind of what product is. So like people have mentioned before, it sits in the middle of, you know, marketing, sales, and in development. So yeah, that's my role here.
Sweet. You hit on
Sales is your favorite team to work with, right?
I don't want to pick favorites. They do bring in the money though, so it's hard.
Good call.
So you hit on a couple of key points there. I think when you were kind of talking about your role and what you do, and some of that being, you know, some of the new development. You know, that's something that we always hear. You know, coming back from Cisco Live recently, we heard a lot of, you know, a buzz about, you know, different things that people are looking for, and we had some great conversations with a lot of existing customers, but also a lot of customers and people just coming to us asking about, you know, new development. Where are we going?
Mm-hmm.
You know, Cisco's promoting this. Are we compatible with it? Are we going to be compatible with it? So, you know, I think that's a hot topic that a lot of people want to talk about. And tell us a little bit about some of the things that we are developing, that you guys are working on from a you know, new development. And I'm not talking about, you know, some of the smaller things, you know, which are still large. I hate to use the word smaller because, you know, just adding a simple report filter and things like that are huge for some customers. But I'm talking about like the larger scale development items. Tell us a little bit about what you guys are working on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Everyone wants to know what the big projects are, right? Obviously, although the smaller things, like you said, they're not to be completely discounted because they're super important. Both for
I love them.
Yeah,
I love the smaller projects. Those have some impact for me.
Yeah, you're the biggest advocate. You and Dan all the time. You know, I work with you guys daily on those types of things, right? So, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure the fans out there want to hear more about the big stuff coming. So, and you know, just to touch on a little bit of the background, anyone who's familiar with Verify and what we do, you know, for our entire existence, we've been a Cisco only shop, right? We've interfaced with all Cisco products, and probably our biggest one is our, you know, CDR reporting, right? Analytics, call analytics. So, you know, with the new trends, what we've been hearing, you know, especially since the pandemic in early 2020, a lot of people have been struggling with their voice solutions, and part of that is the big push to work from home. So what we've been hearing from people is that they're no longer just Cisco clients. They might have hybrid environments. That was probably the biggest story, I would say, in 2020 and maybe 2021 as well. So when I'm talking about people who are using, let's say, Cisco CUCM, but also started using something like Zoom or Microsoft Teams. So those are some other platforms that, you know, we want to get into and we want to support, so that our existing customer base, who are Cisco customers, you know, that happen to have hybrid environments, they can get, you know, they can have one vendor for all of their CDR reporting needs. So yeah, on top, to add on to that, you know, I mentioned Cisco already. They're obviously making a push for people to move on to WebEx calling as well. So that's their cloud player in the game. So people who are, you know, new to Cisco or migrating off of CUCM, that's where they're going to be headed. So those are the three major platforms that we're working on right now. So obviously we're keeping support for all the things that we currently do, but as far as major projects, I would say Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and WebEx calling are three major product integrations that we're working on right now. I would also say that at the moment, Zoom is furthest along in the development phase. WebEx calling and Microsoft Teams are in a similar area right now. They're through some of the initial design phases, and they're starting to be worked on by actual developers instead of just product managers, you know, kind of going over the timelines and the designs and things like that. So yeah, those are the three major projects that we're working on right now.
That's awesome. And I think that's fantastic because you know, you kind of hit the nail on the head, and Jeff and I have talked about this before, you know, the work from home relationship and just the changing of the environments, you know, and even for those customers that still are, you know, CUCM on-prem, CUCM in the cloud, and have some WebEx calling, you know, being able to support that type of platform, regardless of where it is, or whether it is, like you had said, you know, more true hybrid where, hey, I've got got some folks, or this particular office is running Zoom and the rest of them are running CUCM and vice versa, being able to bring that all under one umbrella is important to them, because nobody wants to have or maintain multiple systems to be able to get the same type of content. So looking at and you tell me, looking at a single dashboard and knowing Verify, I think that's our expectation, is to be able to kind of merge that, so that way you can see a single pane of glass, one dashboard that's going to have maybe Zoom employees or Cisco employees or MS Teams employees and things like that. So I think that's important for today's environment.
Yeah, 100%. I think you're dead on when you talk about not wanting to go and look at multiple applications or even have to maintain multiple applications. Even if you forget about the maintenance part of it, right? If you had, like you just said, 2 different dashboards, one that's for Cisco, one that's for Zoom, one that's for Microsoft Teams, that's not really an ideal environment for most people. But then if you take that a step further, right, dashboard, that might be manageable. You could flip back and forth between tabs. You can have multiple open. It's really not that hard to maintain. But where it gets really tricky is when you're trying to run scheduled reports on all these different platforms across all these different vendors, right? And now, yes, again, you can do it, but what you're going to end up with is 2, 3, 4, whatever it is, reports per each vendor. And then you have to try and marry that data together some other way, which is going to take a lot of resources for you internally. So, I want to stress that initially these product integrations for us are going to be a little bit siloed, right? They're going to all exist in Verify in our single application. So you will be able to see all your data, like you just said, on a dashboard. You'll have your stats for WebEx, your stats for CUCM, your stats for Zoom or Microsoft, whatever it is.
And Cube.
And Cube. Yeah, and CCX, right?
And CCX. Don't forget CCX.
But yeah, so initially up front, that's where you'll see it all married together. The reporting sections will be more individualized. So they'll be platform specific for the reports up front. But with our long-term goal is to find a way to marry that data together, because at the end of the day, there are platform specific criteria and statistics that you'll see, but there are still things that make sense to across all different platforms, right? There's
a phone number, a calling number is a calling number.
You got it.
Things that there's commonalities between all types of systems.
Exactly. So you can start to see that stuff holistically across your entire voice, solution, which again, it might be just one of those platforms, but it might be 2, it might be 3 of them. It really just depends where your company is at, where your enterprise is at with their voice solution. And we know that there's no one size fits all. And we know that migrating a voice solution from one thing to another, whether that's, you moving off of Zoom to Cisco, vice versa, or moving from CUCM to WebEx calling, whatever it may be, there's always going to be a time period where there's a little bit of both, right? And for some people, that might be a couple of years, might be several years. Some people maybe less, but it takes a while, depending on the size of your organization, to move that your phone systems. So we want to be here to help our clients, both existing and new, to be able to do that and work with people they're familiar with, work with software they're familiar with, and get all the great statistics and reports that you love seeing out of Verify right now for their other platforms as well. So that's our primary goal at the moment.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think you made a really good point there is, and again, we all know this, there's immediate goals, there's things that are being worked on, there's long-term goals. So when we're talking about things like cross-platform reporting on a calling party number or something like that, that is a long-term goal. But I think it's a really relevant goal, because once we have that data kind of in-house, we can help make educated decisions with our customer input on, what are those fields that we want to search, and the reason I bring that up is just today I was working with a customer and we were looking at Cube data, we were looking at Cisco data, and they said, well, can I just search a phone number across both platforms? My answer was, hold on, let me call Derek. But no, but in all reality, like the answer right now is we don't have that capability. The data is so unique between a Cube or a Cisco or a CCX or, a Zoom as we're going forward. But, we are conscious of the idea that there are similarities between that. So, ultimately we are working towards a goal to be able to bring those similarities under a single roof, so you can kind of do that cross-platform type of reporting. And I think that's fantastic and something that a lot of customers, are looking forward to. Yep. But I think even just having all that information under, one umbrella is huge. Because like you said, like even looking at scheduled reports, and I know, something that you had said is just like, okay, you could have a dashboard over here and a dashboard over here and a dashboard over here. And I think that's great, if you have one or two or three people managing it.
Right.
But, I think part of that is we, we've got customers with 10, 20, 30, 40 people logging in to verify. So, having that spread out, and if they had a Zoom and they had an MS Teams, and there's no way they're not going to do it. They're not going to log into all three platforms to try to, get data from here. So, bringing that under one umbrella where they can log in to verify, select a cluster, and do the searches that they need to, get the metrics that they need to, I think is huge, Ben. So the question, one of the things that you had mentioned is kind of working on all three of these simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
But you had mentioned that Zoom is most likely going to come out ahead of some of the other platforms. Tell me a little bit about that. Is that like, what kind of decision making goes into that? Is it just, hey, Zoom's there and, that's what we're doing, or what?
Yeah. So the decision making there, it involves a lot of different parties. We had a sales kickoff at the end of last year where we kind of talked about these three platforms at length and which one we thought would make the most sense to attack first. Zoom at that time was kind of the leader there. I would say things maybe have shifted over, for us at least, over the course of the last 6 months, where WebEx calling has certainly risen up our list. With that being said, we had already gotten such a long head start on Zoom that it's one of those things you can't just double back and, say, oh, all the progress we made for Zoom, can we apply that to WebEx calling? I wish that was the case. Unfortunately, the reality is not like that simple. No, but, again, that's okay.
Can't just press pause.
Exactly.
And back to it.
But, again, we that's okay, because we knew when we had those conversations back then that there really wasn't a bad route to go, right? These are all, we want to do all of them. It's really just a matter of what order they come out in. And so, we met up in Vegas for Cisco Live. We had a few more conversations, and kind of the fallout from that was, hey, let's just do them all at the same time. Now, at that point, again, we were already decently far along with Zoom. So it's not fair to compare the timeline of Zoom to our WebEx calling and our Microsoft Teams integrations, but they are all being simultaneously worked on now. So to add to that, and I talked to you directly about this, Vic, what's the trade-off, right? And the trade-off there is we're going to have to focus a little bit less on some of the core improvements that we make. Some of those things that, people refer to as smaller or side dishes in some of our releases.
Hey, I love my side dishes.
We all do. Everyone likes some tater tots, but
I eat more tater tots than I do hot dogs. We'll put it that way.
Well, but if you want a few steaks and ribs, then we got to sacrifice something. So,
okay, all right.
No, the reality is we just have to shift resources. We're not a massive operation. We don't have thousands of engineers or hundreds of product managers, right? We have dozens and a handful, which is, again, a lot more than we've had 5 years ago, but it's not unlimited.
I'll say a lot more than we had 6 months ago.
Yeah,
we brought some new team members on to help advance these projects. So yeah. I mean, you gotta qualify that a little bit. You bring people on, you can't necessarily expect them to ramp up and help with a major integration in a 6 month time frame. Oh no, I absolutely do. Derek.
Well,
I expect them.
Well, I'll have you crack the whip.
I'm just.
No, but those are some of the it's always trade-offs with product, right? And Vic, this better than most people in the company who are outside the product team, because you interface with us on a daily and weekly basis, and we talk about these trade-offs all the time, right? And I would also say that some of the headwinds we faced earlier this year were some of the security and compliance projects that we took on, right?
Yes.
We're now SOC 2 compliant for our cloud solution. So, which is fantastic, but
huge
with
shout
that,
out to you guys and the rest of the team here. Yeah, that
major shout out.
Quite a feat in a short amount of time. So absolutely fantastic, guys.
They're not here right now, but major shout out to Dan and Dylan on that one. Dylan is our senior architect of cloud development and operations. Dan's our director of operations. That was a ton of work that added on to, they took the brunt of it. They took a lot of the R&D side of it. But what happens is they go through that process and they tell the rest of the product team, like, hey, these are the things we got to add and we got to fix in order to become SOC 2 compliant. And those types of things, they push timelines back and they add, resource contention really is what it is, in terms of product development prowess. So, with that, so those are some of the, some of the headwinds we faced earlier this year were some of the security and compliance projects that we took on, right? We're now SOC 2 compliant for our cloud solution. So, which is fantastic, but they're not here right now, but major shout out to Dan and Dylan on that one. Dylan is our anyways, yeah, I guess that's a long-winded way of kind of going through a lot of the different trade-offs that product teams have to go through with these decisions. What I will say is it's really an exciting time with where we're at, because we do have the resources now to work on this many projects at the same time. Whereas, like you said, maybe not 6 months ago, but definitely a year ago. Let's see, we didn't have Sammy, we didn't have Tyler. Those are a couple of our newer developers from last year, and Andrew and Richard. We've added them. We added a couple new QA people, so that's 6 people right there. Dana is another one. That's
Huge.
product manager is 7. So that's 7 people that we didn't have just 12 months ago.
Yep.
That, so at the time we maybe could have done 1, maybe 2 of these things at the same time. But yeah, being able to do 3, and I'm also not even talking about some of the other projects that we have going on that are a little bit less user facing. It's just really incredible to see kind of where we're at right now. And with these growing pains comes a little bit of turbulence, right? It's new to us, and it's new to our development process, and it's more people to manage, and it's more people to get in sync. And so there have been things that have slipped through the cracks in terms of communication between some of us and how we do things. But that's what we've really been focusing on, I would say, the past 6 months, as we've also been working on some other major features that we just released in the 13 beta, right? Our whole CDR database archiving and multi-database support solution that we just introduced, what was that, end of June? So, these are all things that, again, we're getting people on the same page. We're getting people ramped up, and it's really starting to see it start to come together, right? And really start to click at a good pace. And I think it's going to be extremely exciting over the next 6 to 12 months and beyond, right? Because I can tell you right now that there will be enough for, I don't want to say timelines for releases or anything like that, but we're pretty confident
Come on,
Derek. There'll be a lot to show for Zoom by the end of the year, if not a beta release in that time frame. For WebEx calling and Microsoft Teams, definitely don't want to talk beta for end of year or anything like that, but there should be things to demo at least, right? We should be able to show you how we're processing data, reporting on data, searching on things, and start to piece that together. And everyone who's listening and watching will be able to see, those types of things will get messaged out on Planet. They'll get messaged out in our email blasts. We'll have webinars about them. We'll have a lot of exciting marketing material coming up on those things as we get closer to those timelines. And of course, as we start to publish more official timelines, which we're still kind of hashing out right now. So, it's a lot going on. There's a lot of trade-offs involved. I think we've made the right ones, but at the end of the day, I think it's a super, super exciting time for anybody who works with us, and especially for anybody who works with us and has one of these hybrid environments. We'll be ready to handle, your hybrid environment sooner rather than later. And if you're migrating, the same thing. It's the same story, right? We'll be able to handle any of this data. And I do also want to go back real quick, Vic, and touch on one of the points you mentioned. You mentioned kind of early adoption for some of these things, and maybe we won't have that marriage of all the data right away in terms of the reporting. Anyways, dashboards certainly will, but some of the reports will be a little bit more isolated in terms of platform. But what I do want to mention is something that's not really talked about or thought about a lot. Is early adoption is really, really helpful in these scenarios, because as soon as you get our, let's say it's Zoom or Microsoft Teams, whichever one it was, WebEx calling for collecting CDRs, the sooner you get that into your system, the more data that we have to work with as our reporting mechanisms are built up, right? So let's say you start in November or something, you're collecting data, and we don't have this unified report across all the platforms until, I don't know, let's say sometime later next year. You're still going to be able to report on all the data you collected from the year before that was released, right? Because as long as it's in your database, we'll be able to grab it, and we'll be able to show you cool metrics on it, period over period stuff and trends and things like that, which you can't do if you waited until it's all ready to go, right? So the earlier you get on it, the more data we can collect, the better for everybody.
Yeah, so the longer term the storage is going to be. Yeah, awesome.
Exactly. So just figured I'd throw that out there, because I think it's not something people think about or talk about too much. So I figured it was just worth mentioning.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, and the cool thing about everything you're talking about and with the new larger scale projects is the smaller stuff isn't coming to a halt. It's not like some of the smaller things or the less large scale items are going to stop.
Right.
When we go through these meetings, we work to identify, what are customers really needing? What are things that we have to do in order to make our customers happy? So, the nice thing about that is as these three huge giant projects are going on, those other things are not stopping. We're still going to continue to put out releases. We're still going to continue to put out great updates. And we always go back and forth about the word side dishes, because it's not meant to demean anything, because those side dishes are sometimes, we've put out, entire smaller releases of just side dishes, and it's just
totally.
like, wow, this is awesome. Like, oh, we've been looking for that. Oh, we've been looking, and it may just be like, just a filter change or a grouping change and things like that we're considering side dishes. But they're not. I mean, they're extremely important things, and that development isn't gonna stop. That type of thing continues to roll forward as we continue to work on these larger scale items. And I think it's awesome, man. It is an exciting year, man. Look, I've been doing this for a long time, so I love working with data. I love working with customers. So kind of seeing us move into these different ventures and different platforms. I've come from working with a lot of different platforms, so I look forward to kind of allowing us to branch ourselves out and get into some of that other data and mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, no, exactly. And like I said, it might mean there's fewer of those side dishes being worked on, which, I know the term, it isn't the best term. I think we've recently switched to using more core improvements internally and likely externally soon to be. But you're right. They're not being stopped. They're just maybe, they only have a few dedicated resources instead of, half of the team, right? Because again, we just have a lot of major projects to work on. But with that in mind, and I don't want to get too deep into specific versions and release timelines or anything like that, because again, it's a little bit up in the air for some of these things. But
I'm trying to bait you. I'm trying to bait you, Derek.
Well, I could definitely share some things, right? So we talked about the big stuff.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm not really trying to bait you.
Well, I do want to kind of just touch on your point, though. So and just to be clear about a couple things. So we just released our beta end of June. I don't know when this will be published, but GA for 13 is scheduled to be end of August. So probably just a few weeks after this gets published. And in between there, we're going to be working on something, so that's going to be 13.0 GA. So the next, I guess, I wouldn't call it a major release, because generally the .y increase, if you think about semantic versioning of XYZ, the second number there is Y. So the next one up would be 13.1. That's kind of where we're starting to scope and hone in on things. And that's where you would see more of those side dishes be delivered instead of something that's, a major project. With that said, the timing is really interesting here, because we're not sure how that's going to align with Zoom beta at the moment. There's a chance that we'll end up scrapping 13.1 and just moving that stuff into the 14 beta, which is where the Zoom will be introduced. Zoom integration will be introduced. But again, depending on the timing, if there is a 13.1 before that, there's still going to be some really good stuff in there. And some of the things I want to talk about are the computed ring time that we're talking about for CUCM, where we're, instead of just relying on two different timestamps for the same call, you're actually looking at the cradle to grave sequence and calculating the ring time based on multiple call details that are associated with each other. I know that's a big one people have been asking for a while. The ability to search and report on inactive resources for UCCX, right? That's one that we've been missing that people are looking for. Not everybody, but a lot of people notice hey, somebody, quit, or someone moved departments or whatever it is, that resource becomes inactive. And now, oh no, I can no longer see them in my reports or my dashboard widgets. And so that's another one we want to clean up. So there's a few other things too, but just, I don't want to go too deep into the weeds because the scope could change, but those two are pretty stuck as it is in that time frame. So I feel okay saying those, but my point being is those are the types of things. There'll be several of those, at least in the 13.1. Again, if that comes out before 14 beta does. So a lot of interesting decisions to be made and a lot of interesting stuff to come out. Even if it's not 14 beta, there's still a lot to look forward to in the coming months.
Definitely. Absolutely. Super excited about everything coming out and super excited to get beta out. If you haven't already signed up for beta, go out there, sign up for beta, planet.verify.com to be able to go ahead and get on that list. We've got quite a few systems installed already. They seem to be running well, but we're always looking for more people to participate in our beta program.
Definitely. Yeah, and as far as the beta, again, we've gone over this before too. If you're someone out there who has multiple databases kind of associated with a single cluster, and you're doing it in a way where you're kind of time stamping your cluster names and your database names, you will no longer need to do that with our new multi-database support. You'll be able to associate all those databases to a single cluster, which is going to really, really simplify your reporting lives. You won't have to worry about doing anything, you won't have to jump through any hoops to get that multiple database reporting anymore, which is fantastic. Because I know some people have kind of been doing that through what is it, the multi-cluster reporting solution. Still valuable, but this just makes your life simpler, makes our engineers' life simpler, our support guys' life simpler. Vic, I know your team loves that. And then on the same vein, if you're someone who has a lot of data, or you just really you're conscious about wanting to segment off archives of data somewhere else to a different server, which maybe has fewer resources, so you're not using quite as much. That's another part of the solution, right? Is the active archive, where you're persisting to not only your primary CDR database, which you know and love right now, but also potentially a separate server. It doesn't have to be, but likely would be for most people, a separate database server to just kind of clone that data, which you can store. And it also comes with an automated schedule too, so that you can do this. You can break out new databases monthly, quarterly, yearly, whatever makes sense for your organization.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I love it. I'm a huge fan. I've been preaching database archiving for a long time, so keep an eye out.
Yes.
If you've missed anything about it, go ahead and take a look at some of our webinars. And as we get closer to GA with 13.0 GA, obviously take a look at planet.verify.com. Take a look at our webinars page, because we're going to go ahead and do some additional webinars. We're gonna rely on our engineering group to squeeze a couple more things into our GA release that aren't quite in BFT or EFT that we've been looking forward to. So definitely make sure you take a look at verify.com and check out our webinars coming up in August for that. Jeff, I know Derek and I have been kind of going back and forth over there, and
Yeah.
Sorry, when you talk product, I get into it. I get excited.
Guys,
I hear you, man. I hear you.
Guys, you guys did a fantastic job. I just kind of sat over here and I drank my drink and I listened to Derek, and everything was fantastic. Derek, thank you so much for joining us. When we get closer to some of these releases, maybe we'll twist your arm and see if we can get you back in here. But yeah, as Vic mentioned, planet.verify.com for any of the information on these upcoming releases and that kind of thing. And Derek, Vic, thank you very much. I will go ahead and end us here, and everybody have a great rest of the day.
All right. Thank you guys for having me. Really appreciate it.
Guys.
Time's up.